Good afternoon, everyone. I hope you're all here with us. We'll give it just a minute to make sure that everybody else has been able to join on this wonderful meet and greet. So we'll hang on just a moment and get started. Make sure all the technology is working for everybody. Sometimes it takes a minute or two to get logged in. So we'll give folks a second. But worst case, all they're going to miss at this point is my introduction. So I think we can go ahead and roll with that. The meat of the program, of course, is coming up here in a few minutes. Good afternoon and welcome to the virtual meet and greet with Clyde Butcher. My name is Nancy Turrell. I am the Executive Director of the Arts Council of Martin County and pleased to introduce this session to you today. Our mission at the Arts Council is to inspire participation and passion for the arts education, promoting the arts, nurturing artists, supporting arts organizations is all part of what we do for our community. The Arts Council has been curating exhibitions in the Courthouse Cultural Center since 1991. In fact, 30 years ago, our first exhibition after renovating the space to be a gallery featured Ansel Adams photographs, which were on loan from the Mitsubishi collection. We are celebrating the 30th anniversary in the space and paying tribute to the tradition Adams set out in photographing our national parks by having the America's Everglades exhibit by Clyde Butcher on view through March 13th. If you haven't been to our space, I encourage you to come to downtown Stuart and experience the amazing works in person. There really is no substitute for seeing the images live. Funding for this exhibition comes from private sponsors like Mutual of America and Misty Moody with Geico, but also from the National Endowment for the Arts. Their CARES COVID relief grant ensured that we were able to bring this exhibition to fruition, so I'm grateful for the support that we have. Today's program is presented in partnership with Friends of the Everglades, so I'm happy to turn the microphone over to my friend Eve Samples, who I've known through her time in her previous life as a journalist and now as Executive Director for Friends of the Everglades. Take it away, Eve.
Thanks, Nancy. It is a real honor to participate today with Clyde Butcher, who I'm going to introduce to you in a moment. And I'm just thrilled to see the first slide in Clyde's presentation includes our founder, Marjorie Stoneman Douglas, who founded Friends of the Everglades in 1969. So this feels incredibly meaningful. I'm going to tell you a bit about Clyde now and then hand it over to him for a presentation because I know that's what everyone's eager to hear about, his remarkable work. Clyde Butcher is an acclaimed photographer who for 50 years has made it his mission to photograph and document natural places across the United States and abroad. He grew up in California and relocated to Florida in the late 1970s, finding peace and his life's mission within the Everglades. His photographs capture remarkable feelings of solitude and wonder. Clyde is a recipient of the Florida Artist Hall of Fame Award and the Lifetime Achievement Award from the North American Nature Photography Association, among many other honors. He's not only an award-winning artist, he's also a conservationist. And on the back cover of his new book, The Everglades, you will find this quote, which I think captures his philosophy. It reads, "It is my hope that the vision I give to you of the Everglades will inspire you to love and protect it for generations to come." So without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to Clyde Butcher. Welcome, Clyde.
Hi, thank you. Thanks for having me here. Well, you know, your first slide is Marjorie, and we were celebrating her 101st birthday. So I did this poster and she was signing it. It was really, she was at 101, she was sharp as a tack. But people don't realize that when she actually kind of defined the Everglades in 1947 when she wrote The River of Grass. But she didn't really start her real environmental movement, I think, until she was in her 70s. Then she got down to business to try to save the Everglades, besides just explaining what they were. So it was really a privilege to meet her. I met her twice. Also when she was 104, she was still sharp 104. The Everglades really starts at Orlando. People don't realize that this is the system is a north to south drainage system. I consider the top of it is Reedy Creek. This is a picture of Reedy Creek going into Lake Kissimmee. Now, Lake Kissimmee is kind of like the headwaters of the Kissimmee River. And in the Water Management District, I was working with them on a project on the Kissimmee River. Kissimmee River was created in 1960-71. It was a controlled flood. It drained 60% of the wetlands. It was distributing the cycle, lowered plant diversity, lowered fish and waterfowl diversity. And then when we started the restoration, it was a very slow start, but I think it was Jeb Bush that really got on the stick. And between the Corps of Engineers, Water Management, the Air Force, the ranchers, the farmers, and the citizens got together to solve the problem. As you can see on the left here is where the Kissimmee ditch was. And they put it back to its normal flow. And then in the summer, when it floods, the water goes everywhere like it used to go, and cleans it going down to Lake Okeechobee. So we were out in the airboats, and it was really interesting. It was so interesting that we get in situations where we couldn't figure out where we were. That's how great it was. And these were the people that this is the Water Management District. And you have to understand, I learned or got the information and this inspiration on saving the Everglades, actually from the South Water Management District. They really explained to me what the whole system was about. And because that was important for me to understand what the problems were. And this is after the restoration. You can see that this used to be cattle. And now it's a marsh, which now cleans the water. And the birds are back. I mean, this was in October, and there were a huge amount of birds there. It was amazing for October to have that many birds. And then from there, it goes down to Lake Okeechobee. Lake Okeechobee is a big old lake that they don't know what to do with yet. It's 30 miles in diameter, full of polluted ground. Now, this was kind of a fun picture. I mean, people say, are alligators dangerous? Well, this was the most dangerous thing I've come across so far, is this cow. And she had her horns wrapped around my camera. And what do you do with a 2,000-pound cow? But there's still small cow business, but that's what's polluting the river, is the cow and houses and industry. And we have to understand that what we do, everything we do affects everything. Now, this is a conservation area, which is one of the areas that cleans the water that's going into the Everglades. And with the two bridges that they've got now, hopefully we'll be getting more, hopefully clean water into the Everglades National Park. Now, this is one of the first pictures I took when I went back to black and white. I thought this grass was sawgrass until I discovered it was cattails. And the reason cattails were here, this area here was in Okeechobee, which had tomato farming for years. They would bring train loads of manure down. They would take oxen with like snowshoes on the oxen and kind of go up. You can see the troughs where they would raise up the mud and put manure in to fertilize it, because the Everglades is nutrient poor. But this was done in I think it was probably in the 30s, and it's still polluting. It takes a long time to get the nutrients out of the water. This is what the Everglades should look like: a beautiful grass with flowers rolling down, and just and if you fly over this in a helicopter, It's endless. It's really an interesting thing to see it in a helicopter. And then there's areas where we have a lot of cypress, and this particular, these cypress trees are called dwarf cypress. And the water, the earth is like, it's coral, it's not coral, it's limestone. So there's not enough mud to have big trees. So you see all these little trees are probably much older than the big trees because these things don't have, it's like a bunch of big giant bonsai forests. Then you get, this is down south of the road where you get into the real Everglades. I mean, this is what it all looked like from Okeechobee, from Lake Okeechobee all the way down to the Everglades. This is what it all used to look like. Some people said it was so thick you could walk on top of it. And there, what there is in Big Cypress and Everglades, there's called strands. They're like rivers that run through. And this is a river that's actually running through in front of our gallery. Now, using an 8x10 camera is a little tricky. It's the exposures. This is a 6-minute exposure, so nothing can move for 6 minutes. And you know how much everything likes to move in the Everglades. If just the least bit of wind, I would have to start over again. But this was, unfortunately, these are Guzmania, and they're getting killed by the little beetles that are laid. Their eggs are laid into them, and then they hatch. They eat the roots, and they're disappearing. But that's the long story. But the orchids. There's orchids all over the place in Big Cypress, and Big Cypress, Fakahatchee Conservation, Everglades National Park is all people are considered the Everglades. It's all one system, really. And you can see the little orchid with a big giant camera is fun to photograph. But it's a challenge to get these things photographed with a large format camera. This was I shot in 1999. It was fun getting to it because you had to get there before the sun came up. And we had to walk about an hour and a half through the swamp in semi-darkness. And that's, if you haven't done that, that can get kind of exciting when you have all these neat sounds coming out, and you don't wonder what that one was, you know. And the bird population is coming back, particularly in Kissimmee and Big Cypress, because we're getting rid of some of the water, so the water level is lower. Red-shouldered hawks are really kind of a fun thing to watch. This is just, I mean, how do you have a place like this any place else in the world? Then the south of the Everglades woodlands is Florida Bay. And this was a friend, I met this fellow in a presentation I did at the Key Largo Library. And he said, I'd like to take you around the photograph. And I'm used to a canoe, and this little thing has a 300 horsepower engine, and it really kind of moves. So all day we were chasing clouds. And like this was, we have no idea where we were when we took this picture. We just stopped the boat. I got out of the boat, got in the water, and took this great image. This gives you the power of the Everglades. The storms, I think, are the powers. Now, this is one of my silly cameras. It's kind of a overkill. It's a 12x20. It's not like taking a TV camera out there. And you can see I'm the anchor. The boat's wrapped around my waist so I can get my film holders out. But what I'm trying to do is give you a feeling of being there. So I have to be in the water. You can't take this from a boat. Also, that camera is long exposure. So it's really important to be in the environment when you're taking these photographs. This is our gallery in Big Cypress. As you can see, we're actually in the very center of the Everglades. We're 50 miles from Publix in Miami and 50 miles Publix in Naples. So we are in the center. We had a bear come and steal Nikki's purse out of the car one day. I mean, it's really a very interesting place. And we have a gallery there. We give swamp walks. We gave President Carter a swamp walk. I think it was 2002 when he was 80 years old and his family. He was really a neat guy. And then we also have a gallery, and it's where all of our production and darkrooms in Venice, Florida. This is where I do the darkroom work and frame the pictures and have a gallery there. And you can see these guys people have a ball. People understand the Everglades until you get in there and walk into it. And normally we get up sometimes to your thigh in water. So far, we haven't had any problems. We've had about maybe, I don't know, 10,000 people through. And gators and snakes, they don't want anything to do with people. And we give everybody a stick. The stick is the best weapon to defend any kind of animal, because you just kind of make them, you ignore it, you just want them to go away. You don't want to hurt them. So a stick is really fun. I had a snake one time. We had a water moccasin. We just took the wooden stick and just walked him out in the woods, and there he went. Now this is one of my favorite pictures, Oscar Thompson, which is one of my best friends. This was in September, and he died on me. And this was the last time we were with him, since September. We were out looking for ghost orchids, and sometimes you wish you would have. This next picture is one that wouldn't it be nice to take that picture? But what it does, if you look at this and you feel this picture, we're a spaceship. You know, we think that this whole, your ground is flat, but everything we do, everything everybody else does in the world affects the whole world. So we have to think broadly. We have to think locally, but we also have to think worldly if we're going to solve and create a world that's safe and beautiful to live in. And I think that's really important. Now, I'm finished, but what do I do?
I'm back, Clyde. That was remarkable. And I had the privilege of doing a swamp walk recently with one of my staffers from Friends of the Everglades, Allie, and we were about waist deep, but not quite as deep as you showed in that last picture there. So your experience is incredible, and it really comes through in every photograph you take. And I want to start off with a few.
Should I get rid of this? Should I get rid of this screen?
You can leave. Do you want to go back to one of your favorite photos in that reel? Maybe
This is my favorite photograph.
Well, we can leave it there then. I'm going to ask you and if the audience has any questions, please put them in the chat and we'll get to those. But Clyde, this picture is actually perfect for the first thing I want to ask you about, because in your new book, The Everglades, you describe what it felt like to be immersed in the Everglades, in the swamp for the first time. And you called it a primeval experience. And you said it's when it dawned on you that we humans are part of a greater whole. And I'm hoping you can take us back to that moment and what you felt.
Well, you're out there and you're surrounded. You have to realize when we first got the property where our gallery was, I hadn't anybody walking there for years. I mean, and you're out there and you think, is a dinosaur going to come over the horizon? I mean, and I was a little nervous because, I'm from California, and I've seen these pictures of alligators and snakes and all this stuff. But Oscar, was my best friend, was telling me, well, they have no interest in you. The problems you have is where golf courses, places of behind people's houses where they feed the gators, but in the wilderness, gators are not scared of you. So I really got used. I got the sense that I was okay. The water is crystal clear. It's hard to describe it unless you're out there, that how wonderful it is. And I don't think there's anything like this anywhere else in the world. Everglades, I think, is unique. Like the paraphyton, it does some marvelous things. I mean, all these things it's figured out over the years. The paraphyton dries down in the spring and keeps the moisture wet. All of the fish and frogs and crawdads put their eggs under it, and then when the spring comes, the waters that come back and this moving water, and it's filtering all the pollution out of the water, and its droplets is rock. So it's taking shit, putting it into rock. I mean, that's pretty marvelous. It's hard to describe. You have to go, well, I mean, when I took out the president, the Secret Service gal I was with, it was like 4 Secret Service people. This gal was one of the for President Carter's wife. And she said, I can't believe they're making me do this. And she said, but I gotta do it, About 15, 20 minutes into the walk, she said, I can't believe I'm getting paid to do this. I mean, it was from complete terror to complete enjoyment. It was really, really very exciting. So I think it's like a big giant womb, just feels good.
That's poetically put. So I'm sure you get this next question all the time. The question is, why did you move to black and white and not color? I understand you started with color early in your career, and why have you stuck with it?
Well, I started in the 60s black and white. And then in about 72, I went to color so I could match people's shag carpet, gold couches, and earth tones. And then after I didn't start photographing the swamp until 1984. And people were it was really interesting. When I would go to an art show, people would ask me, is this in the Amazon? Or where's this? Is this, oh, it must be in Africa. And I said, no, it's down the street. And people were getting excited about it, but I felt that they really weren't understanding it. So, because sometimes there's so much color in the Everglades that you're seeing the color and you're not seeing the essence of what you're in. And when black and white simplifies it, I think you have a better feeling. I mean, what's more important, air or water? Everything has the same importance. And black and white gives a oneness to the environment. So everything balances out. And you have to have balance in life. I hope that it kind of explains it.
It does. And could you hit the back arrow so we can see one of those remarkable black and white photos?
Okay, well, let's see. Is this is that one okay?
Is that Florida Bay, did you say?
Yeah. How about that one?
That's stunning. And when you're out in the Everglades, that lush greenery can really envelop you.
All you would see is green here. You wouldn't see the individual leaves, and the flowers are yellow, and that's green. So there'd be a conflict, you might say, between the two. But here it's all one. The background is all green. This is green. Everything is green. First time I saw some pictures of the greenness, I kind of want to throw up. so much green. I wanted to see what was there. I wanted to see the texture. I wanted to see the composition.
Hmm. That's fascinating. We've seen the wrong kind of green in our waters in Stuart in recent years. So,
Oh yeah. Well,
maybe-
unfortunately, I think we had a lot of rain this year. I was out at Everglades National Park in December and January, and the water is high. So I'd assume that means there's going to be dumping, like Okeechobee could be bringing more good stuff down.
we are concerned about that. The lake is about 2 feet higher than normal for this time of year. And
No,
your work is
the
so
Everglades, the
vital.
Everglades was really pretty though.
Hmm.
It
Yes,
was
that's why we were up to our waists.
it was gorgeous.
Another question for you. So anyone who's been to your gallery or has already been to the Courthouse Cultural Center in Stuart, which I have a virtual image of behind me here, has seen the very large format of your photos. And I hope
Right.
you could tell us a bit about that process. I'm sure it's not easy to print photos that way, but why do you go so large?
Well, okay. I make my pictures large so you can't see them.
Tell me more.
Does that make sense? No. Well, people don't understand how they see. You only see about 4 or 5 degrees. So to see a large photograph, you have to scan it. And by scanning it, it gives you that feeling of being there subconsciously. And that's what I don't want. I mean, the composition is got to be good, but I want you to see all the little details, the periphyton, the bladderworts, the fern, you know, everything. And so you have to explore it. Now, like an 8-foot picture, if you were 4 feet away, it becomes 3-dimensional.
Hmm.
You feel like you could, particularly sometimes I do verticals that size, you feel like you can walk right into them. And that's, I'm trying to connect people because a lot of people don't want to get wet. But, and sometimes it's hard to see the beauty for the chaos. And one thing that I get problems with scientists, I said, I like to make order out of the chaos. And if I don't see chaos, it's not in biological order. And they get all upset because chaos means it is, because everything is working together. And if everything was the same, it would be, I could tell if it's been destroyed by man, if everything is the same. You're looking, they plant 3 palm trees or they plant 5 palm trees, but I always look for chaos in nature because that gives you a feeling of being there, because that's what's natural.
Hmm. That's a good segue. And you alluded to the pollution and other threats the Everglades face. But of course, Florida's population has grown massively since you started documenting Florida.
Oh yeah.
And of course, since Marjorie Stoneman Douglas wrote River of Grass in 1947. So I was really struck in your new book in the foreword by something you wrote. You wrote, "Suddenly my photographs were becoming history rather than images of how Florida presently appeared." I'm wondering, how do you hope people will use and receive your art as a catalyst for protecting what's left?
It's a challenge. You know, in language, there's 4-letter words that people don't like to say, but in politics, there's 4 words. You talk to a politician about something, the first thing that come out of his mouth, it costs too much. So what does it cost? It also costs too much to live. It's cheaper if you die. So costing is sometimes it's a figure that people don't understand. That if you spend a little bit more money in the foreground, it'll save money in the long run. Like this whole restoration, if they hadn't have done that, we wouldn't have done that restoration. I mean, I think the Kissimmee restoration was, what was it, $4 billion? Not sure exactly what it was, but
Billion.
it was a lot of money. And Jeb Bush is the guy I think that pushed that through. People forget about Jeb because of all the politics. He did a really a lot of work on particularly the Western Everglades and the Kissimmee, because the Kissimmee, when water management used to take school kids out on the Kissimmee Canal, and they would measure the water quality, and it would be parts per million. And now when they take kids out, they can't measure it because it's parts per billion.
Mm-hmm.
So you can see that, but it's still not good, but it's a lot better than it was. I mean, a lot better.
Mm-hmm.
And it's one of the top restoration projects in the world. Hardly anybody knows about it.
Do you mind scrolling back to that photo, Clyde, so people can see what we're talking about? The Army Corps of Engineers restored the oxbows in the Kissimmee River, which through man's follies was channelized in the 20th century. And you can see that scar on the left is the old channel.
Yeah. Well, you know, I did my first project for the Corps for the water management in '89. They had put a partial blockage of it to push water back into the old stream. And it was one dirty water. It was scary. I saw this great shot. I had to get out of the boat to take it. I had problems for about a month about kinds of stuff you wouldn't want to talk about. Basically, I was in cow shit. But the cows, there still are cows there, but there are very few of them. They're just kind of like almost like wild cows. I've seen a couple here and there, but not very many. But there used to be milk farms, cow farms for milk, thousands in a one lot, and it was full of shit going down into the river. And that's because the problem is now is all that stuff has gone down into Lake Okeechobee. Lake Okeechobee is so polluted. I've talked to the Corps, I talked to water management. They have no idea how to fix that. So the only thing they can fix is the water going out of it.
Mm-hmm.
So my only thought is that they have to do on the Caloosahatchee and the St. Lucie just the same as they did on Kissimmee River restoration. They've got to buy 50 or 60,000 acres and put the water just like it did here, make it back into a marsh to clean the water before it gets to the coast. That's my only. I think that's the only solution myself is to clean the water before it hits the ocean.
It reminds me of a quote from Ernest Lyons, who was the editor of the Stuart News many years ago. I believe you might even have a book of his in your gallery in Big Cypress in the shop. But he said, "What men do, they can undo," and we see that here with the Kissimmee. But there's a lot more undoing that needs to be done, and a lot more restoration of land. So it can feel quite daunting. But I have to say, Clyde, as an advocate, your images of the beauty really help keep us going and remind us what we're fighting for. So thank you for that.
Well, it's like I say, I've been around. I'm in almost only. Well, I only been one state I haven't been in. That's North Dakota. And obviously, I think the Everglades, and Florida, is probably the most unique place in the United States. And people say, "Oh, Yosemite is great, and Glacier is neat," but Florida is a living, creepy place. It's a living place. It's not a bunch of rocks.
Mm-hmm.
And I like living things. So I think, but unfortunately, we have for financial, we have a good tax base. The people want to move here. A lot of people are getting out of New York and California and coming here. So we're going to have a real challenge in all kinds of ways: electricity, sewer, water. We have a lot of water, but it's also very susceptible. I mean, the whole people don't realize Florida is like a rock sponge. Like this canal you see on the left here, it was going south, but on each side of it, east and west, there's drainage. So it'll actually seep into the water system because of the way the whole thing is built. So it's a very fragile state. We are. What are you going to do with a bunch of? I mean, you see people like Yosemite. Well, that kind of like what can you hurt there? It's a bunch of rocks, you know. So we have a real challenge to be able to give these new people energy and water and get rid of all the sewer. And that's basically, and it's some things that some politicians try to ignore. They just said, "Oh, we need more tax base, so we'll make some more houses." So where are they going to get the water? Where are they going to put the waste? I ever since we've been here, we've only been here since 1980. But 1980, in Big Cypress, the Everglades, at about 2:30, 3 o'clock in the summertime, you'd have the showers coming in and it cooled down to 70, 75 degrees when it was 90 outside. And now showers are coming later. They were at 4 and 5, sometimes 6 now. There's so much concrete on both sides of the coast. It's changing the weather patterns. So
Could you pull up that chasing cloud photo, Clyde? I think that is a nice backdrop to what you're talking about. And I love how you describe.
Wrong way.
No problem. And while
it's really fun to watch a cloud develop. The fellow that took us out here had lived in the Keys for 20 years, and he had never stopped for 3 or 4 hours to watch a cloud develop. If you haven't done that, it's really exciting to see this cloud develop.
Do you think you have more patience than most people, Clyde?
Huh?
Do you think you have more patience than most people?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Well, Florida moves. I mean, you use a large format camera, you're talking the fastest shutter speed I think I've ever used is a second. A lot of the pictures I take in the woods are 2 to 6 minutes. So that means nothing can move. The picture I took in the back of the gallery is called Loose Screw Number 2. I worked every day for 2 weeks on that shot. I left the camera out in the tripod in the swamp. I go out every morning. It took 2 weeks to get that photograph. And then the one that if you saw that well, let's see if I can go back. Anyhow, let's see if I can go back here. Oh, going the wrong way again.
That's okay. They're fun to see.
This shot here, I found this composition in January 1st, 2000. I went back every year for 9 years before I got the photograph.
Wow.
And it's like a 2-hour walk through the swamp to get there. It took me 9 years to get the water right, the plants right, the sun right, the wind right, get all the elements working together. So I knew I wanted to get that photograph. I thought it was gorgeous. It really, to me, it says what the Everglades used to look like south of Lake Okeechobee, where all the sugar is. Now, this is what it all used to look like. The swamp apple trees, and it was like that, and I wanted to show that again. It's hard to find an area like this.
We're getting some good audience questions, and I want to spend the remainder of the time we have getting through as many of them as we can. So the first one is a technical photography question.
Yeah.
What type of 8x10 view camera did you use? What was your favorite lens and type of film?
Okay, it was an 8x10 Deerdorf. My favorite lens was a 90 millimeter Super Angulon XL. It actually created a 6x10 image because it didn't quite cover the whole thing. And the other one I used was a 120 millimeter Nikkor. And I always used T-Max 100. It only had 100 ASA, and I shot it in normal. So that's one of the reasons that I wanted the fine grain. So when I blew a picture up to 8 foot, it would be in focus and sharp and no grain.
Great, thank you. I love this next question. Ashley writes, with so much worry in the world, including worries about the keeping of our Earth, what have you seen in the progression of the Everglades that gives you hope today?
This may sound really weird, but it's Elon Musk.
Say more about that.
Well, if you don't, he's out there trying to solve the problem of global warming. If you don't solve the problem of global warming, ain't gonna matter what we do in the Everglades. It's gonna be, well, where I'm sitting here now in Venice, I think the water used to be 90 feet deep here. And the global warming, I had a scientist, the main scientist for Greenland was staying in our cottage a couple of years ago. And as soon as I found out who he was, I poor guy, I sat down, I said, I got to talk to you about this global warming deal. And he said, in Greenland is one of the major problems, major ice there. And he says, it's a lot worse than people think it is. When I was the Corps of Engineers, in 1997, Colonel Rice gave my wife and I a tour of a Corps in Jacksonville. It was 2 days. 110 people gave us presentations in 2 days. And one of them was designing walls around the cities of Florida.
Wow.
That give you an idea?
Mm-hmm.
This is the Corps of Engineers, not the Sierra Club.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we got to start thinking about the big picture, but it's nice to concentrate on small, little pictures too, because that's really important. But we also have to look at the big picture, and the big picture is solutions like Elon Musk. Now I have at my house here in Venice, we have enough solar to run the house, the air conditioning, and charge my car. We have 900 square foot house, 900 square foot house, not a big house. Mm-hmm. We make enough electricity for that, and we get back $100 a year at the end of the year. Mm-hmm. So our footprint is on energy is zero. And in the swamp, we have 11,000 watts on the house and 3 Tesla batteries. So it's independent. So we're trying to do what we can do personally, and I was listening to some of these this newscasts. It was on Fox. I can't remember the people. I don't remember people's names, but the news guy was talking to, I guess it was a person in charge of energy or environment. I can't remember exactly what it for. And he said to her, "Well, I hear Bernie took a private jet." And she avoided the whole thing. And she should have said that was wrong. Every person has to take personal responsibility and who you are or what you're doing. You have to take personal responsibility for what you're doing. I know he's working on the big picture, but you got to start working on what you are doing. And that's important, what every person is doing. And I haven't met many environmentalists that are doing anything personally other than trying to complain. Mm-hmm. And that's the biggest thing I get is people complaining and not doing.
I'm hopeful about the next generation. I do see high school and some college students walking the walk in a hopeful way, especially
we don't have enough time. There's not enough time for that. It's, you
Yeah.
can always throw it off to the next generation,
Mhm.
but it ain't gonna work. It ain't
There's
gonna-
urgency. No, I take that point. All right, I'm going to jump into a couple more questions here, Clyde.
Sure.
How did you learn and develop as a photographer, and what do you consider most important to your work now?
Well, that's I could take a couple hours. Well, I just started out photographing. I was an architecture and I couldn't draw, so I ended up building models and figuring out how to photograph them and photographs for the presentations. And after I was into architecture for a while, I was I went to Yosemite a couple times and saw Ansel Adams' work, and I said, "Oh, I could do that." Took me a while, so I just decided I wanted to do it, so I just did it. What was the other part of the question?
And what do you consider most important to your work now?
Most important is the people see it. That's why we have this traveling show, so people can get an idea. I have a show that I donated to the Florida History Museum up in Tallahassee. It was in 1989. And when I brought all the photographs up there, the people that ran the History Museum asked me if my father had done all these pictures. And I said, I don't understand the question. Well, this doesn't exist anymore, does it? This is the History Museum. Because they don't get out. I was talking to a person in the gallery yesterday. They're going to do a project on Sarasota, the town of Sarasota. I said, well, who cares about the town of Sarasota? Do you ever go out into the woods? No, I don't do that. So people are not connected to the environment. When they're not connected to the environment, they don't see the importance of it. So I'm trying to say that it's beautiful. It's something everybody should do and see. It's just a tough sell because people are so disconnected. That's why we give swamp walks. And those are our ambassadors. When they like you have a whole different feeling after you get out and physically go through it and say, this is something special. Don't want to lose it. I just can't imagine losing the Everglades. It's just beyond my imagination losing it. I was out there and it's called what is it? Anyhow, it's a little area called a reef, and it's 3 foot high elevation. You don't have far to go, 3 feet. It's not very far. And if you keep going down towards Flamingo, you get about, I guess, 7 or 8 miles from the Flamingo, the mangroves are starting to invade. And the black mangroves are dying because of elevation. The water is going up in the ocean. It's happening now, and there's huge icebergs breaking off. And problem not as icebergs, but it's when the ice on the land starts melting. And this scientist told me what's happening underneath the glaciers in Greenland. It's getting eroded. Water is cutting underneath the ice. So one day this thing just slides off the mountain. We're in real troubles. So you've got to start thinking about the whole world. I mean, and you can't figure out the kids are going to save it. You got all these old farts up in Washington. They're not going to live long enough. They don't care. They're 80 years old, 70 years old. It's the old people that've got to solve the problem. They're the ones making the decisions.
Yeah, let's not let them off the hook. I think that's important.
Absolutely.
I have one more question from the audience, and then I have one more for you. And I know Nancy's going to rejoin us at the end. So I'm hoping you can scroll to the picture of, I believe it was a hawk that you showed, because the question is about that picture.
Oh yeah.
James asks,
Yes,
did
I
you
think it
take
was
the bird with extended wings photo with,
there it is.
okay, he wants to know if you took the photo with the view camera and long exposure. Can you talk
Uh,
about how you captured this moment?
Actually, it was taken with a Pentax 6x7 roll film camera with a 800 millimeter lens from my porch.
Hmm.
When I was living there, I had my that Pentax sit up on the porch right in front of the window. I see something interesting, I would run up, open the window up, take a picture. I love doing bird photography and air conditioning. Our porch is a good. They don't see you in the house, so you can just sit there and just all these pictures. That was taken from the porch. But being able to live out in the middle of this, you see things that nobody else gets to see.
It's a stunning spot there. And when I went on the swamp walk, I had the pleasure of peeking into the spot where you lived with the floor to ceiling windows, and you really feel like you're in the swamp even when you're inside. So very special place.
Yeah, it's like a IMAX theater.
Mm-hmm. Yes, you don't need a TV if you live there.
That's right.
Well, my last question for you is a personal one. And I want to ask it because we've all been through and are continuing to live through some challenging times with COVID-19. And I feel like you have a really unique perspective on loss, Clyde, since you've talked often about losing your son in 1986 to a drunk driver and how that really propelled you into your art. So
It did.
wondering how you think this era will impact the artwork being made by you and others.
Oh, it's really great for me because I get out there. Because this is a place to go with no people. That's great. Actually, I've been doing more photography during this pandemic than before because that's a place to go. It's exciting. Even though with my stroke, I get out with my walker. In fact, I have a new walker now. It's you know how when you get out of the hospital with a stroke, you have this little metal frame walker where you kind of poke along with it. With my walker with the wheels, it's hard to get out in the swamp because you have to lift it up. So when I was out there this January, I got this new walker and I was able to get out the swamp about, I don't know, 60, 70 feet out there and take a picture I wanted to take. That's been really exciting, being able to get back in the water after the stroke.
Do you see other people doing important work in this hard time? And do you think artwork that comes out of it will be better?
I have a friend, Jeff Ripple, that's doing really great paintings of the Everglades. He's getting out doing it. I don't. It's really exciting. It's really nice to see that people are trying. Other photographers are trying to do what I've been doing. Unfortunately, they're doing it in color because they don't think it's going to sell because you got to have colors so it make it sell. And it's very difficult to do good black and white work. It's not easy. To have all it's well, Ansel Adams had it figured out. He did pretty good. I kind of emulated how I kind of started out was emulating Ansel Adams, Win Bullock, and Everett Weston. So I was using those as emulation. Now people are emulating me, but most of them are doing it in color. They think it's pretty. Well, it's pretty, but it's not art. I mean, if you saw this picture on the screen right now, that was in color. You have all that color in the background. You wouldn't see the bird and the vermilion like you do here. I mean, that bird is there. I mean, it's standing out, and you see the whole environment it's in. It's I think that people it's well, when I went from color doing art shows in Florida, people that were selling black and white were doing probably in sales 1/100th of what I was doing in color. I mean, it was like they were hardly paying their gas bill to get to the art show. So it's everybody thought I was crazy when I dropped my color, because I was the top selling artist in the art shows with color. And everybody thought I had just lost it. I had, I had lost it. And I think that I mean, could you imagine selling black and white photographs of the swamp? I mean,
Now we
think about
can.
it. Think about it. So,
I think you certainly can.
but back 30 years ago, I don't know.
Wow.
Because Ansel Adams in 1971 couldn't sell, he was having a hard time selling black and white. Actually, in 72, he went to color. I went to color. But luckily he got out of the color real quick, because well, for one thing, when I did color, I did my own enlarging so I could control it. And he was having to send it out, and he couldn't get anybody to do what he wanted to do. So I think he gave it up for a couple of reasons. But I mean, I also don't think he liked it.
Well, you may have lost it, Clyde, but you helped all of your viewers and fans find something. So thank you. I've really enjoyed talking to you. I know Nancy's jumped back in from the Arts Council, and I'm going to hand it back over to her.
Thanks, Eve, and thanks, Clyde. You said you've lost it, but I think what you actually have done is captured it for all of us. So thank you for that, Clyde. It really is an amazing thing that you've been able to do for all of us. And today was such an interesting and informative talk. So thank you both, Eve and Clyde, for being a part of that. Before everybody goes, I want to remind you that our gallery hours here at the Courthouse Cultural Center are Tuesdays from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. and Wednesdays through Saturday, 10 to 4. Admission is free, but donations are appreciated. Masks are currently required, and of course, we ask that if you're not feeling well to visit another time. During Arts Fest weekend, the weekend of February 20th and 21st, which is in the gallery will be open and is included with your Arts Fest admission. We'll have extended hours, 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. on both Saturday and Sunday that weekend. I hope you come out and enjoy the artists, the music, the dance, and more that Arts Fest celebrates. But if you can't, we are also offering Arts Fest at Home, a virtual taste of Arts Fest. Information about all of that can be found at artsfeststuart.org. And again, thank you for participating today. Thank you, Clyde and Eve. And I hope we see everybody at another program sometime soon. Thanks.
Well, I think when people see the work in person, they get more excited about it than on television.
Nothing like seeing it live.
It's really something else when you see it live.
Thank
That's
you.
true. Thank you, everybody.
Take care.